Anyway, after we got the first 10 minutes of Gaga out of the way, we got the opening match on Bad Blood. And by cracky, I see why they did it now because of what they went off the air with, but they saved the best for first, the Hell in a Cell match, Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. And there was no way they were going to be able to top this, but because of the multiple cameo appearances and returning cliffhanging drama at the end, they had to do it this way. But was this fair, Brian, to put this on and then expect anybody to follow it?
Was this WWE's match of the year?
It almost has to be, isn't it? I mean, what? Oh, God.
Did this match pick up as it kept going?
Yes.
We see so many matches that they keep going past the point where the finish should have been there. This one had the exact opposite. It kept going, and it kept drawing you more and more into it, and the fans were going crazy at the end.
And it was 30 minutes long, and it didn't seem like it because it wasn't repetitious and didn't peak before its time. But so I'm trying to think. I know they've had a few Donnie Brooks and slobber knockers and the like, but I can't think of anything that, because this not only was a great match, but it made me like a match that had furniture involved and weapons. And that's almost impossible.
This was the match these two needed. Remember when I complained about the previous ones that it just didn't do it for me? The strap match and the first match with Rollins as the ref?
Yes.
It was missing the energy of I hate you. And obviously the feud has gone further since then, but I don't know if it had to be this, but I always wanted to see more of just them trying to kill each other, which is what this was. This was great.
Yeah, and again, I understand, with Rollins as the referee, they couldn't do what they needed to do in terms of violence, so they got that one out of the way. I don't know what they were going to do, but maybe if Rollins hadn't been hurt, they would have done something to follow up on that, but they've got an opportunity. We'll see what happens. But the point was, this felt like a fight, a struggle, a contest, whatever terminology you want to use when people go, oh, well, everybody know it's a work. Okay, but that doesn't mean that you have to just stand there and fucking pull your dick out and show it to them and tell everybody. It's still supposed to be the tickets we bought for the show that we want to see is these two guys trying to beat shit out of each other. So that's what they did. And not only they started out throwing punches like adult men, instead of the forearms, they used the cage, but when they pulled something out from under the ring, whether it's a chair or a toolbox or a wrench or whatever, it made sense and they made it work, and they didn't pull out 6 tables and set up a goddamn tower like a high school shop class project and try to give somebody the twirling Yamazaki suplex off the top through the 15 tables for no reason. They were beating the shit out of each other. Drew pulled out the toolbox and got the wrench, but Punk fought back and got it and used the wrench. And it sounds outlaw to say it, but it looked good. Again, they weren't using obviously fake implements that were made out of plastic or balsa wood or whatever, but it's supposed to be real and hitting each other 15 fucking times with them.
You can see the result. I mean, that's the other thing. We've seen a lot of these matches where they're doing a lot of these crazy things and no one has a scar, no one's bleeding, and no one looks dirty. These guys looked like they had the fight that they were having.
Yes, and thankfully another thing that's happened that Vince is gone is when it's called for, we're getting blood. Now, I don't know whether Drew intended to get the blood he got, because we'll get to that in a second, but I liked when they tried to set up the first table, the leg was broken. It wouldn't stand up, so instead of trying to be indie goofs and do their table spot anyway, Drew just jerked the legs off the thing and they beat each other with the legs. And Drew is the one that busted Punk open first when he lawn darted him into the cage. And already it was to the point where I was writing, can you imagine how this would get over if you didn't have a bunch of underneath guys, mid-card guys, and outright children doing this stuff in every promotion 5 times a week? Because when shit like this was done sparingly in a big match with the main event guys, that's when the people were going out of their fucking minds. They were with this, but it used to get a bigger reaction because it wasn't so commonplace. And then, speaking of Drew's blood, Punk has the toolbox in his hand. He's on the floor, and Drew reaches out to grab him, and Punk does the deal where he goes over his head with the toolbox, and Drew didn't block shit. And Punk potatoed him with it, and he's bleeding right away, but after the show, they tweeted pictures of him. What did he take? 16 staples to
something like that, yeah.
You know, I don't know whether it was a hinge or what, but nevertheless, you know, there was a toolbox made out of taters. And then Punk is cooking, boom, 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 and he hits finally the GTS, but Drew rolls out to the floor, and then they were both selling these things and selling the effects, and Punk is bleeding and Drew's bleeding, but they'll set up Drew hits a Claymore and gets a 2 count. But then he misses one, and Punk's able to get the sharpshooter, but Drew gets his hands on the wrench, and he beats him off with the wrench. And
that sounds really bad the way you said that.
Well, you should have seen the way it looked. And then did you see the referee get booed for getting a towel and wiping the blood off? I'm wondering if in the back they were going like, too much blood. I said, get a little juice, kid. So the referee wipes the blood off of him so they can see it. He gets booed. But their punches were great. They were throwing punches at the head, and they were bleeding and obviously showing effect. But there were the chops and the kicks, the body language of how the guy that would get hit would stagger, but the guy that would throw the blow would stagger. And then they broke a table with a suplex off the apron through the table. Both of them sold it, but they got that done. And then again, they go back with the big moves where they get a 2 count, one, then the other. And then finally, you know, they're going into the finish. Drew gave Punk a ball shot and brought in a black bag. And I was thinking, oh, God, I was like, they've gone all this far. They're going to pull out thumbtacks, and what the fuck? And he dumped the bag on Punk's head, and it was the friendship bracelet beads. And so it made perfect sense. And also, it wasn't fucking thumbtacks. And he poured them, as I said, on Punk's head and went for the Claymore. But Punk moved out of the way, and the stairs were sitting in the ring, and Drew landed back first on the stairs. And I don't know how somebody hasn't paralyzed themselves on these stairs before now. But they make me nervous because of those sharp edges and the hard edges. But anyway, so Punk got then, I didn't even see where the chain came from. It might have been off the cage, but he got a chain, and you've seen guys try to wrap the chain around their arm and clothesline, or the chain around their foot and kick or whatever. They could never even goddamn get the chain wrapped up. He wrapped the chain around his left knee correctly, stuck a handful of beads in McIntyre's mouth, and then picked him up and hit the go to sleep. Boom. 1, 2, 3. And again, 30 minutes. It didn't get old. You were hanging on it at points where you're like, oh shit, what's going to happen next? Blah, blah, blah. They took you on a roller coaster. It wasn't indie bullshit because everything looked as good as it could look and made sense instead of just doing stunts. And then when Punk left the ring, he collapsed and the EMTs came out with the oxygen and gave him the oxygen. He got up and he staggered to the back selling the effects of the fucking thing.
Yeah, what'd you think of that? No one does that.
Well, but in something like this, you almost had to. And it was, but a lot of people wouldn't have thought of it. They were, okay, it's over now. Now everybody knows again. No, this was like, fuck, I don't, can I get back? I want to get back under my own power, but I'm having trouble. And that, again, they shouldn't have any kind of matches involving any of this shit as often as they do. And they being the royal they, the wrestling companies as a whole. But when you have it, this is how to have it, with guys on top that people care about, that have drawn money, that they're interested in seeing and they fulfill the goddamn what you want to see. And because you don't just let every goofy jackleg on the show do it, when people see these people do it, it's memorable and means more. Will this be, everybody remembers the first Hell in a Cell because Michaels and Taker and Kane and the blah, blah, blah. This will be as memorable in its own way. They said it was I think they've had 51 or 53 Hell in a Cell matches. Who remembers number 38?
I can't think of another Hell in a Cell match. I can't think of the last one that really stood out. And I mean, it's an annual thing. We always see it. This one was great. And like I said, this feud needed this match.
Yeah.
This wasn't like a Hell in a Cell. Let's just put two people in there. The feud built to this match. It needed to be a certain thing, and they hit a home run. This was one of the best WWE matches I've seen in a very long time.
And that's when you also throw in the Hell in a Cells, the Elimination Chambers, the other things they do with a cage or cages or apparati of this type. This is going to be memorable because it stands out as different as the culmination of something that was already drawing money and getting ratings, and and then they deliver this. And again, hey, the guy in the most memorable match on the biggest gated pay-per-view arena event of all time just got fired last fall by the other guys for, I guess he couldn't contribute over there. Huh.
What do you do next with Punk and with Drew?
Well, I don't honestly know that you can do anything else with them, with each other right now. And it wouldn't hurt for one or maybe both to be off selling the injuries a while so that see, here's the thing. If both of them just were on TV, and we haven't seen Raw yet, I haven't. If they were just on TV the next day talking about other people or interacting with other people without showing the effects of this or maybe even taking time off to be medically cleared, then it's obvious that they've gone in different directions. But if one of them is off for a few weeks so that the other one could get involved in another thing with another person that's there, and then that person comes back later on and gets involved with somebody else, and it's not as obvious a split, right? Because they still hate each other. And if you were thinking logically, why would Drew want to quit now? But the answer is that somebody else attracts his eye or Punk gets involved with somebody else. It's a graceful exit. It's like we're going over here now, but it's not like we just said, okay, we're not doing this anymore. So it'll be more subtle.
Favorite match of the year?
So far, one of them. That was last year, the tag match with FTR. So that was over a year ago.
Yeah.
My, how time flies when all this shit looks the same.